Welcome,
All
welcome.
right,
Grand
welcome.
Rising, everyone. Good morning. Happy
Morning.
Thursday. Happy
We
Thursday,
we
Jeff.
didn't know if we were gonna make it this morning. The internet's been out yesterday and today.
I
It's been
know.
absolutely crazy here. Yeah. A
So
lot of people have been
frustrated.
complaining about the internet. I thought they just blew up the internet between Finland and Germany, but I guess not. So
No,
who knows?
I think stuff's going on everywhere. Everywhere. It's so frustrating. It just puts you in a little bit of a whirlwind when you're trying to
Yeah,
get
it
something done.
does.
But here we are, Grand Rising. Hope everyone's doing well. Again, happy Thursday. So, what do we got going on energetically this morning, Jeff?
Well, we got all kinds of stuff going on. It's actually a pretty good energy today. We got, a
Ooh,
moon sextile Jupiter. And, the interesting thing is if you follow every single day, a lot of astrologers put up things every single day about the energies. Just following the moon alone will get you a long ways. It's interesting. Yesterday we had a lot of internet trouble. We were doing a project and remember the moon was conjuncting Mars. And I'll never forget, you were just like really frustrated. So was I. And right afterwards, the moon conjunct Mars. Literally, it goes to bliss. Right, then the moon was making a wide orb to
Jupiter.
Jupiter. And
Yeah.
I know a lot of people aren't familiar
Like that.
with astrology. They go, well, this is all heady stuff, but they're just geometric aspects. And if you just literally follow, I actually have a 16th century document that was put out by a court astrologer, William Ramsay. He was kind of a contemporary with William Lilly back in England in the 1600s. And he put out this little table, like, don't do this on certain days when the moon is opposing or, squaring or conjuncting Mars, or this is a great day to go talk to, people in power and authority. The moon was trining the sun or, going to a sextile to the sun. And I have to say, it's spot on. I read it like
Yeah.
35, 40 years ago, and it's really amazing how accurate the moon is. It just,
Yeah.
even to the naysayers who go, oh, this is a bunch of crap, right? How can that be? And I was one of them. It's right on. It's absolutely right on. So today we got some good energies. We have the moon. It's sextiling. Let me just look here and make sure I'm right. Yeah, it's sextiling Jupiter at about 4:21 p.m. today. That's Pacific time, standard time. And then after that, it goes to a trine to Mercury. So, there's going to be some people who are going to have bad days, because we all have what we have in our charts. But I have to say, this is overall not a bad energy. Also, the moon is making a sextile. I'm sorry, the sun. The sun is making a sextile to Pluto. So, these energies, they're very interesting. But I like to back it out and look at the big picture. And one of the things, everybody's, waiting for this new administration to come in. Some are very happy about it. Most are, and some aren't. And, of course, we've got major changes going to happen to this country. And the big picture is you look at the outer planets and, the big cycles that have been going on for the last 4 years, ever since the COVID debacle, has been, we got to look at Pluto. Pluto made a Saturn-Pluto conjunction, right almost, you got to set your watch to it, in the tropical zodiac when COVID broke out. It was absolutely stunning.
Wow.
Then, and here's something I don't mention much. I want to mention this just a little bit, and that is Neptune has been squaring the United States Mars, both in the tropical and the sidereal. And that's been happening for the last 4 years. And don't you feel a little bit like somebody's been blowing smoke up our rear ends? I mean, it's just been the twilight zone, literally. And I can tell you, the Neptune squaring the United States Mars, it's now over, and the mist is beginning to settle. And we have the final Pluto return on the United States. And I've been mentioning, we are either going to be destroyed or we're going to be the phoenix rising out of the ashes. And even though I think we are going to be the phoenix rising out of the ashes, I don't think that the dystopiocrats are going to just roll over and let this go smoothly. We're already hearing all these various governors are banding together and saying, well, that's it. We're going to resist Trump. We're not going to let him, they're declaring the sanctuary cities. And, it's crazy because crime statistically, and I'm hearing this from sheriffs, it's been all over the news, it's up 60, 70% in some places. And, again, all these percentage points and polls that everyone takes, are never 100% accurate, but it's been dangerous. And, they still are digging in. It's absolutely crazy. One of the things that, I have here is a clip. I mean, just listen to Tom Holman here. I mean, this is not a guy who's going to roll over. I took this off of Newsmax. Just listen to what he says here.
As far as Governor Pritzker, saying he's got this law now where, they can't help us and we can't even detain people in their county jails. What does that mean? It means he's hurting these people even more, because we're going to arrest them regardless of what he says. If we have to take them out of state, away from their families, away from their attorneys, that's exactly what we're going to do. And using the term citizens and law-abiding, let me remind him, you cross the border illegally, it is a crime. Every illegal alien in this country who enters this country illegally is a criminal by definition, because they violated Title 8 United States Code 1325, illegal entry to the United States. If they're deported and came back, it's a felony. So they're not law-abiding. They broke the law coming to the United States, and we're going to find them, and we're going to deport them.
Now, that doesn't look like a guy who's just going to roll over and say, oh, yeah, geez, we need your help. I can tell you this is going to get crazy. And the resistance is going to be strong. And I can tell you they're going to come in, because the federal government actually does have the right, from everything I'm hearing. And by the time it's done, they're not just going to roll over. And it is dangerous. I mean, you're where you're living, you hear constantly the sirens and the helicopters coming around. I mean, you're telling me every other day, it's like the house is surrounded with helicopters.
Oh no, it's nuts. It's really been wild in the area where I'm living, and it's what you just showed there. What I was thinking, what hit me is like, wow, when people say certain things and we're having certain conversations, we've got to understand we're talking about souls here. We're talking about beings.
Oh, yeah.
The majority of people will not think that way, but these are beings that are having experiences on Earth, and a lot of them are people who are really struggling and going through whatever they're going through. But when we look at the whole picture and all of us just experiencing here, it is nuts. Like, this planet is
totally nuts. It is. And when, I mean, you don't have a country if you don't have borders, I actually think Clint actually said it best at the end of Pale Rider.
There's nothing like a nice piece of hickory.
It's sometimes force is necessary, and this is crazy. We'll get hate mail for some of this, but I can tell you that
get to that point, though, that this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's sad when it's got to get to this point.
Really
and,
sad.
This also brings us to the big picture of astrology. Look at what's happening. Biden just approved the long-range usage of missiles in Ukraine. And talk about insanity. I mean, that is, going to be nothing but trouble. And I can tell you now they're hitting deep inside of Russia, and Russia is going to retaliate. I mean, I actually have a clip here where they're talking about that. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, this is Zelensky talking about whether or not they can settle the war. Now, this has been going on for years, ever since 2022. Listen what he said.
Are you hopeful that President-elect Trump will be able to influence Putin to end the war?
It will be not simple, but I think if to use all the issues what the United States has, yes, he can, because he is much more stronger than Putin. He's stronger.
Well, there you go. It doesn't matter which side you're for or what side of the political views you take. I agree with Trump on this issue. He said people are dying. And the same thing in the Middle East. I mean, when you look at the force and the power of these modern weapons, whoa. Forget just nuclear. It's really powerful. And so many people, you were playing me a clip the other day. I wish I had that. We'll play it sometime in the future, about John Lennon. What really got him killed is he made this video on Give Peace a Chance, but I had never seen it until you showed me the clips of all these little kids and these people, the civilians just slaughtered, in the Vietnam War. Of course, he was really pushing the Vietnam War issue and the efforts of war. And he was talking about the insanity.
That's why they took him out. And, I lived in New York at that time and would see John Lennon, Yoko Ono. They would walk through Central Park. He never had any protection around him. They would just walk arm in arm, stop, talk to everybody. and they killed him right in front of the Dakota, right in front of his building. You
Yeah.
know, until this day, there's pretty much like not a shrine, but almost right where he used to walk, and
Yeah.
it's so sad. It's so sad.
You bet.
Encourage people to put posters in their windows that said "War is over," and let
That's
me
it.
tell you, just watching that, I was like, "That's why they took him out. That's why they
Yep,
took
yep.
talking about love.
Absolutely.
No way, no."
Yeah. Well, I've been mentioning too, astrologically, we have Uranus sweeping over, and right now Uranus is retrograde. It's going to station and go direct here. We'll talk about that. It's coming up right at the end of the year here. And Uranus goes over some really difficult fixed stars, one in particular, Stenebola. And it's going to station, which means stop. And then it's going to go direct and go back over these fixed stars all this spring. So, let's hope it all gets diffused, but it's just escalating and escalating and escalating. Here I found a clip on the Russia thing.
This comes just 2 days after we learned that President Biden lifted restrictions on Ukraine's use of these long-range missiles. The response from Russia was immediate.
It is a signal that they want to escalate the conflict, and it is impossible to use these high-tech missiles without the Americans. Putin has said this many times.
This is pretty transparent what's going on. And of course, the cables are being cut. They're fanning the flames. The owners at the top of the pyramid, I've always said, if you really look into some of the historical evidence, it's pretty strong that you follow the money, you see where everything's going. It's the same thing with Iran. You give them billions, which they have. And of course, they couch it and preface it in humanitarian aid, which some of it may have gone that way. I can't sit here and say, but I can tell you it fits the astrology where, again, we've mentioned this many, many times, where Uranus literally sweeping through this area of the Pleiades, which is the sidereal sign of Taurus. Every time it happens, we get trouble. There's always dissension in the world. And again, the last time was World War II. Hitler was marching, attacking, and taking over countries, France, England, whatever they could. And then you go back 80-something years prior to that, we had the Civil War. Before that, the Revolutionary War. And if, again, leapfrog back through the Middle Ages, you'll see major conflicts. And it's interesting because it's always rebellion against good and evil. And, every war certainly touts that. But, we're in a place right now in the world where this is very, very, very dangerous. And, I personally, I did cast a chart. I don't see that Putin is going to, and I looked at it in interrogation. Will Putin nuke? Will he actually do a tactical nuke? The chart leans towards likely not. And he may be doing the world a favor. Not that all the killing going on both sides of the fence is any less without a nuke. But
Right.
at least I think they're going to provoke him, and they have been provoking him. But I don't get that he's going to do a nuke. When you look at the power that would be unleashed on a global scale, nobody.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
It'd be insanity. And I get that that's likely not to happen. Let's hope so. And I bet, it's interesting to hear Zelensky in that clip, say, well, geez, he's more powerful. I mean,
Yeah.
Biden, he's going to go down in history as one of the most inept presidents. Not only have they concealed his, cognizance. I mean, he has just been out to lunch. I mean, you listen to the guy talk, he can't carry on a sentence. And I just find this virtual insanity. Now, doesn't that fit the astrology? We have been in the freaking twilight zone for the last 4 years. Neptune was squaring Mars. I haven't mentioned that much, but the astrology was stunning on this. It really was. And I remember mentioning it about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I said,
the
Neptune squaring Mars. And it is literally insanity. And it has been. It's been without question, And, I have to say, the only thing one can say to it all is,
Here we go.
so let's hope it goes away. And it will. What's interesting about the astrology is whether you believe it or not, when these aspects separate, they just go away. And people look back and they go, well, I hardly even remember that. It's the same thing in my own life. I mean, when I look at the intensity, and that's why when I do readings with people, I see, the intensity of some of these people going through what they're going through. And, I can relate, I get it, it's really
And
powerful.
it's right there. It's all mapped out. It's right there.
It really is right there. Yeah.
It really is
You
right
bet.
there. Whenever I feel something really intense going on, what's the first thing I do? I ask you, what's going on? What's going on in my chart? What's happening now? Right? Or when I feel really, really good, like I just had that moon descending. I discovered I went away for a couple of days, like last year, and I found out that I was like, why did I like that place so much? And we looked at it and we saw, oh, you had a moon descending
you had a
line
progression
happening there.
Moon descending line. Yeah.
Wow, that's why. And it was just at that time. Now, I guess
Oh, that's
gone.
location astrology. Location astrology is amazing. I mean, I had a friend a few years back. He moves on a Mars-Pluto latitude crossing. And, he calls me up. I was like, what the heck's going on here? He says, it's just so violent here. He says, I almost got in a fist fight with a guy in a gas station over, sharing a pump. The guy was trying to get in and get the pump, And I said, you're on a Mars-Pluto line. He goes, that makes sense. So, yeah, it's amazing. It really is. Belief is not required. And again, I'm not trying to sell astrology, but I am pretty stunned at how powerful it is.
Oh, yeah.
And, again, I've been going down the rabbit hole even deeper and deeper with a lot of the old documents in Vedic and Nadi astrology. And it's pretty wild when you look at, is there free will? Yes, I absolutely believe your mind and free will is key. But boy, the influences are strong. And again, there's where mind over matter does matter. If you understand the matter that's coming at you or the energies, you have a better chance of dealing with it in a more intelligent way or common sense way,
I'm still confused about that one, and I feel like I always will be, because what if you don't know about the energies that are coming in on you and you're just living your life, and you're you make certain decisions, you react a certain way, but then when you look at the astrology after that, you would see why you did make that decision, or it's still mapped out there regardless of the free will or not. Like
well, it is, but then again, you got to drop back to common sense and also just a person's advancement in consciousness. If you take certain people, they are more rational. They're older souls. They react to things with a more, you could say, conscious response rather than just going into some insanity.
Well,
we all lose our temper. We all have our issues, but some people react to things pretty violently. Or self-destructively. That's another thing. A lot of self-destruction. They go into alcohol, drugs, or some other crazy behavior. And, this is why logic and common sense does apply. And there's where free will is. I see a lot of the yogis. I've actually studied a lot about some of the really advanced spiritual people. And again, many Christians will relate to this. Many Jews will relate to this, where many of their saints and prophets would talk about the yogis in India too, and the Tibetan lamas, where, they would become stoic or less reactive. They'd be like Teflon. They would realize it's all an experience. And whether you are looking at astrology or whether you're not, that type of consciousness still applies. You see what I'm saying?
No,
it's just, I think where astrology helps is you get the timing of it. You get the aha moment going, wow, this is exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
So it's an additional aid, no question.
Oh yeah, I get that. I just get a little, not confused, but I question a little bit the free will only. All I'm saying is because it's mapped out in the astrology. Like, so that with the free will, I guess I'm saying maybe we feel like we have free will, right? Yeah, I'm going to make this decision. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. How many times have you looked at a question for me and then it played out a certain way, and then you said, well, it showed you do that. Or it showed you go that route. That's what I'm referring to.
Well, that's a really mysterious thing about interrogation and prashna astrology. And for anybody listening that doesn't know what that is, that's literally asking a question. It's not your birth chart. You're literally casting a chart for the moment, which is pretty stunning. Because people would go, well, how can astrology do that? That was, one of the questions I had. Well, it shows the universe as an interactive consciousness. The Eastern horizon becomes the queering. And this is one of the oldest types of astrology. Most people years ago, particularly kings, queens, generals, whoever was using astrology, which was a way of life, definitely in many of the ancient times, there's overwhelming evidence to that. And it
Yeah.
was a real cherished thing in the royalties. And, you'd say, well, how could that happen? Well, it proves that we're literally engaged in our perception of reality. And that's why I think you could say interrogation astrology usually ends up correct, because most people are very rooted in their beliefs and in their trajectory of what they're doing. This is where free will is that actually proves free will, in my opinion, because I
Okay.
see people in certain courses of action where they're just going to do what they're going to do, and you're not
Yeah.
going to tell them any different. And the chart mirrors that. And of course, the only time we get to see that is if someone's casting a chart. But
Right.
a lot of times I've seen this, like in legal situations or in conflicts or violent situations. Like I've had a lot of women who've said to me, geez, he's beating me up, he's doing this and doing that. And, I always say, well, call the cops, but, and they'll say, well, will he do it again? Or will this situation happen again? Or will some stalker? And the interesting thing is it shows what it shows. And that's based on that person's perception of reality. We're all playing a movie. We really are. And the question is, how many of us stop and get out of the movie and go to the bathroom, get some popcorn, or whatever it is, or stop our reality and question our reality? And that's really where it's at right there, is again, common sense and rationality. So do we have free will? Absolutely. But it's interesting. Tesla had said that he thought the entire matrix of astrology and astronomy was literally held and bound by etheric energy. It was much bigger than just the mechanics of astronomy. And I have to say, I would agree with that 100%. And, again, most of your really prolific minds over history, Galileo, Newton, Pythagoras, I mean, we go back through history, we're all astronomers, which is what we call astronomy today. Pretty wild stuff, pretty wild stuff.
Yeah,
So,
it is. It really, truly is. I see that more and more every single day. Every single day.
Wild stuff. Yeah.
Thanks everyone for joining us. So many people with us. Lots of comments, questions. I'm going to kick it off with Rocky Stucci Jr. Good morning. He's asking Jeff, in a birth chart, can spirit guides be seen? Is it said every soul has spirit guide? It is said every soul has spirit guides, but how do they appear in the charts, or how do they affect your astrology? Thank you.
That's a great question. I absolutely, in my opinion, yes, especially when you start getting into the older stuff where you look at each sidereal degree of the astrology. One of the things I always look at in readings is the Eastern horizon influence, which is very interesting. Many people are familiar with feng shui and vastu. Well, why is the East always the place where spiritual practices are done? They meditate. And if you look at feng shui, why they want the door to face the east or the northeast? It's where the sun rises, but more importantly, it's also where the Eastern horizon is constantly ascending on wherever you're located, which again, in terms of our reference point on the globe, I know some people are flat earthers, but it is still the Eastern horizon is where spirit manifests. And in astrology, they call that the ascendant. And isn't it interesting, even in what we call interrogation astrology, some people call it horary, asking questions, you still treat the Eastern horizon as the point where spirit manifests. Well, back to his question, or to come up with an answer, I find every single degree of the zodiac has angelic forces that rule it. Well, here's what's interesting about the spirit guide question. I really believe, the Vedic astrology called planets graha, and graha actually means seizer or grasper of the aura. And we are, I believe, in an interactive matrix of portals, these planets. A lot of astronomers say, well, yeah, this is nonsense. This is all masses and gases and rotations and astronomy. But what's interesting is when you look at the angelic forces, I think there is a myriad of possibilities with the combinations of planets. And so you don't see this until you really get into Vedic astrology, where they have all these different reflectional points in astrology. It's very complex. You have what they call padas, which are, you have one planet reflects its energy somewhere else in your birth chart. And you look at this in the divisional charts, and it's pretty wild. I mean, you can see when events, positive and negative, are likely to manifest in your life. And again, it's up to us how we react to that. But you call them spirit guides. Like, I've had a lot of people in the UFO community say, well, I feel like I'm a walk-in. Well, this, is showed up a lot. It shows up a lot in progressions. See, secondary progressions in solar arcs, as well as the Time Lords called dashas in Vedic astrology, are profound. I mean, your life changes on the dime. If all of us look back at our ebbs and flows in life, and then you look at these chapters of life, these are clearly shown by these astrological cycles, whether you believe them or not. It's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. And, back to spirit guides, that's a phrase that would just mean that something else is changing. Well, in the Sharar Hagilgam, which is the text I refer to a lot, an amazing text if anybody wants to get it, it means the gates of reincarnation. It talks specifically in there, every child at 13 years old, male or female, it doesn't matter, we're all going to have what they call a spiritual energy join us. And they call these abures, but they might be disincarnate souls, or they could be spiritual attachments. And I think this is going on throughout our life. I really do. We are definitely sentient beings, but we have so much spiritual stuff that comes in on us. And I really believe the planets are multidimensional portals, and they act differently on every soul because these energies, I believe, are connected to our soul roots far, far above astrology. So that'll come right back on. So it's really quite profound. It's absolutely stunning how these interactions work. And you can call them spirit guides. You can also call them energies that join us at different points in time throughout our lives. And it's stunning. It really is. It's almost like possession in a way, for good or for ill. And again, we are in the center. The soul and the spirit is in the center. Our consciousness is really something in this lifetime that was formed. It's called the lower conscious, called the nefesh. This is all in the Shar-A Hagilgam, or Sharar Hagilgam, which just means Shar-A means gate and Hagilgam means cycling. And it's quite profound because, we're in the middle here trying to, discern all this stuff coming at us. It is pretty wild stuff. I got to say that. Pretty interesting stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Rhonda is asking if you could speak to the ratcheting effect of retrogrades and how events unfold or progress as each aspect repeats. Nice to have you here today, Rhonda. Hope you're doing well. Hope your husband's...
Well, that's a great question. I'm glad she brought that up because you know what? I forgot to mention, and she reminded me, Mercury's going to go retrograde this Monday. And of course, here we are on Thursday. That's the 25th. And of course, what does that mean? Well, planets go around us, and we are, of course, going around the sun as well. And even if you're a flat earther, this model still exists. And the bottom line is, when a planet goes retrograde, it's due to the orbital speeds. Well, Mercury goes retrograde 3 times in a year. And, most people are familiar with that, and they always get kind of freaked out. And I have to say, Mercury retrograde is definitely a powerful effect. It is definitely a time where you want to back up your data. You want to drive more carefully. You want to retrace, rethink, and rework. And many astrologers have talked about that. And it's different for every single individual because it's going to go retrograde in a house in your birth chart in a certain aspect to something in your birth chart. Sometimes it does nothing. So it puts a focus on the area of life that Mercury goes retrograde. And, all the planets go retrograde. In fact, we just had Saturn go direct. It was on the 14th of November. And again, I think we're going to have Pluto go, let me see where that one is. Let's see if I wrote that down. Yeah, Pluto just ingressed on the 19th of November. And what's interesting is it's going to stay into Aquarius. Now it'll go back and forth too. It'll go retrograde back and forth. All the planets do except for the sun and the moon. They all eventually go retrograde. And again, this is due to the orbital speeds, and very, very powerful when they do. And it's interesting, even in interrogation astrology, if you see a planet retrograde, they're usually not operating in the same rationality or sensibility that they are. So it's really cool stuff. Really, really cool.
Interesting. Really interesting.
Yep. Now you can go down the rabbit hole forever on this. You'll never figure it all out.
Yep. Well, Zach's with us today. And Zach is asking about the 72 angels. He's saying, when looking at the 72 angels of the zodiac, is that what you used to find Trump's angel for his ascendant?
No, that's called the Shem Hemaphorish. That's amazing. That's in the Bible, in Exodus. That's the 72 it's actually 72 angels that are ruling each quintessence, which is a fancy word for each 5 degrees. A quintessence is 5 degrees. So you have 72 of them. And that's different. That is much, much different. No, the singular degrees have been written a lot about by different astrologers throughout history. I use one that's a pretty cool codex. You can't get it anymore; it's not available. But it was by Jain. He was a Vedic astrologer. It's not around anymore. But there's a lot of different degrees of the zodiacs, and some of them I like, and some of them I don't. I always test everything. Like this is one here. You can see degrees of the zodiac. I think that was by Martin Goldstein. It's not bad, but you'll find there's commonalities between all these degrees, and there's many different books. The one that I have, it's a book that I actually, I don't even know where the heck I put it. Oh yeah, I bound it because I bought this at the Bodhi Tree years and years and years ago. So you can see I just bound it up here. But it's actually a little book called The Stars in Your Future by Manik Chan Jain. Can't get it anymore. So it's really good because each single degree of the zodiac is ruled by a specific angelic force or energy. And of course, they call them fixed stars, which aren't so fixed that everything's moving, but they're quite powerful. And I find they're really accurate. The thing you got to be careful about in all these books is interpreting exactly what it means. And, I'm always very careful in readings because it's not that simple. Everything is influenced by everything else. That's why I really like Vedic astrology. Nothing's cut and dried. Everything is looked at in the juxtapositions from all the influences. Like you may have a fixed star or an angelic degree on your eastern horizon, but what if you got a planet there? Or you got an aspect to it, and it's in a different sign that's aspected by certain planets that are strong or weak. So it's complex. It's really complex.
And we all have a different angel on the ascendant, right?
Oh, everybody does. Yeah, unless you're born at that same minute and degree. Yeah, but we all do. And the skeptics will say, well, all kinds of people are born at the same time. Well, move north and south, move east and west at the same time. So the likelihood of two, and a lot of children are born in hospitals at very close times. Look at twins, they're minutes apart. But every 4 minutes, you move a degree of longitude on the eastern horizon. And you got to be careful here because a degree minute is broken into 60 seconds, you see. So, or I should say 60 minutes equals a degree. So there's where Vedic astrology really gets interesting. They have all these different divisions. There's like 150 divisions to a sign. It's absolutely amazing. So there's a lot of different divisions. It gets really complex. And this is why, first breath is where it is said that we actually, have the spirit tied into the body. Again, the earth is literally a soul cauldron. It is. It's the soul cauldron stuck on spin cycle. That's what I always say, right? So, and it is, and again, I always love, my little cartoon.
Wrestle, 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 time for this one to come home.
And it's like that too. It really is. I mean, we're all so blocked from who and what we are, but we're all getting. They say consciousness raises funeral by funeral. So,
oh gosh, oh my gosh.
and again, I have to quote Clint. He says it best sometimes.
We all have it coming, kid.
What did he say? We all have it coming?
He says we all have it coming, kid. Remember that was in the Unforgiven.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Yeah, we all have it coming, right? So
let's jump to Erica. Erica's
and then people look at karma, right? They look at karma, and I got to quote Clint. He said it best here.
Deserves got nothing to do with it.
I remember that one. Yeah. I didn't deserve that. Deserves got nothing to do with it.
I didn't deserve that. Deserves got nothing to do with it.
Right about that one.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, sometimes we look at karma. We look at the crazy stuff that happens to us. And a lot of times the theory in Vedic astrology is this boomeranging back to you. If it wasn't in some way or shape or form, why would it be shown in the astrology? Now, then you got the other side of the coin. Maybe it's something new coming in, and there's where free will plays, you see? So we could be creating some new stuff. It's all down to consciousness and how we react. So what were you saying?
Oh, interesting. Erica is wondering if Jeff can say some words about how you would look for a pulsar or solar flare hitting the earth at the same time in astrology.
Yeah, that's a good one. Astrology, looks mainly at planets and stuff. And, that's why I really respect astronomy. We do have solar flares. These solar flares are huge. And, there's a series of things been going on with our sun. And I think, the grand solar minimum people have been talking about this. And these cycles seem to have been going on forever, where the sun reacts and we get a period. It's actually said to get colder. I know this year in California, it has been cold here, and not super cold, but damp and cold. And, the weather patterns are very erratic. And again, there's nothing wrong with clean air and all that stuff. But, talk about pollution. Just look at the chemtrails sometimes. I don't see any cars making that kind of pollution. Do you? Even the diesels, they don't do that. So they're spraying our skies, and of course that's supposedly for weather control. But yeah, I can tell you, the solar flares are huge. What a massive influence, and a lot of things that no one really knows about. And again, this is where I do have respect for astronomers, is, all these telescopes are pointed all over the place out there. The Webb telescope, especially the new one now, is looking at, all these different influences of distant, stars and galaxies. And again, there's the yugas and the passage of our solar system all the way around a central sun. And there is been many historical records of destructions and all kinds of apocalyptic things that go on when we pass through these from these astrological, or you could say influence. So it's deep stuff. It's way beyond anything that I think anyone's going to fully analyze. And again, the whole thing with Nostradamus, a lot of people have said many things about Nostradamus predicting certain timings of apocalyptic events, and they haven't happened when they said. The only thing I could say to astrology is I find like 9/11 absolutely happened on the Saturn-Pluto opposition. COVID happened exactly on the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. So again, I just observe what is accurate and what isn't. And clearly, we're if you go back through history, even the Federal Reserve Act, World War I, all these things really showed up. And they show up on countries' charts, and they also show up in the mundane astrology. So it's powerful stuff. Even right now with this Pluto ingress into the tropical sign of Aquarius, you can feel it. It's a major shift in the world. And that's why I don't think we're going to nuke ourselves and go up in a mushroom cloud. I actually think extraterrestrials and divinity would step in and stop it if something like that were to happen. That's been pretty talked about by many commanders who've come forward and different people in the military, where they said they've had interaction and believe that this would be stopped. So
yeah.
Let's hope that's correct. My analysis, I think it might be.
I hope so. I hope so.
Oh, yeah, you've got that right.
Kazmir's bringing it back to politics for a second, asking, what do you think of RFK Jr. and Elon Musk? Do you think they will make changes that will improve the USA? We haven't looked at that. We haven't cast an interrogation about any of that yet. Right, Jeff?
Well, I know RFK. I was working on him the other day, and RFK has some really powerful energies kicking in here. In fact, I know here. Let me just look at my notes here. Yeah, he has a really powerful dasha kicking in here. Dasha just means Time Lord in January. In fact, ironically, it's on the 16th of January. Well, he would get into power somewhere after that, after the 20th, the inauguration. But, there's all this dissension right now about resistance of having all these different cabinet members getting in, including Gates and so many other people. And I can tell you, I think there's methods that they're going to get these people in. I haven't looked at each one individually, but this goes with the Pluto return finalizing on the United States. And I really think we're going to see unprecedented changes. And I think, in a lot of ways, it's going to be what we absolutely need. I mean, we were heading down a path of complete and utter destruction financially. And this is not going to just be corrected in 5 minutes. So, yeah, I like what RFK is doing. And I think he's in a lot of danger here from what I see, too. And Trump, too. This is not going to go without, a lot of resistance and backlash. But I think it's going to go forward. That's everything I'm seeing. And I have to say, Kennedy moves into some transits this year. I actually took a look at his birth chart. And we'll get into that on another show. But he has Pluto trining Mars 3 times. Every single person I've ever seen who has Pluto trine Mars, they are Popeye on spinach. They are just cooking. And this guy is going to be cooking. And, it's quite powerful. He's got a lot of really good energies coming up. The only, he did have some dangerous ones, too. So, I mean, I don't think, you need a brick to fall on your head to know that Trump and Kennedy and Musk and the rest of them are going to have a bullseye on their back for, many to stop them. And in fact, I heard a rumor that all of the Congress people are now getting bigger coats so they can fit all the money that they want to get stuffed in there from the bribes. And again, I love George Carlin. This is a good one.
Tough decisions like how much soft money can I expect to collect in exchange for my core values?
So, I mean, that was George Carlin and Language Complaints, by the way. If anybody wants to listen to that one, oh my God, it's the best piece he's ever done. It was called Language Complaints. Yeah. And he actually went to the Washington Press Club in the 90s. He had just written Brain Droppings, and he was in front of all these, political and press.
Amazing what he got away with. Really,
oh my God!
I
mean, it was some of this stuff was really. I mean, listen to this.
Terms used by politicians. They speak, of course, with great caution because they must take care not to actually say anything.
I mean, he just goes on. I mean, I want to play all of it.
No, it's a good one.
So good.
You can find it right on YouTube. It's a good one.
Oh yeah, you can watch it on YouTube. It's so amazing. But the irony is so accurate. And God, again, I go by his office all the time, or his old office. They're tearing it down now. It's where his office used to be. It's up on the 3rd floor. And I always look up there and say, George, wish we had you back. I mean, what would you be saying now?
George. You need to. Yeah.
You bet.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I think we're gonna tie it up here because I know you have your next appointment coming up in a few minutes.
yeah,
So
I got to get flying here.
yeah,
But
thank you,
yeah,
Jeff.
so
Thanks for
yeah,
this.
we had fun, and again, we'll pick it up next live,
We'll be
and
back on
we're
the
working on
next
some
one.
new stuff here to come out, and
Yep, yep,
it'll be a lot of
yep.
fun.
Gonna release
So,
some new
all right,
material really, really soon, right around the corner. So thanks everyone. Take great care of yourselves. Have a good day, a good week ahead, and we'll see you next time.
all right, take care.